Hello and welcome to Call a Death Doula, a series just highlighting death doulas, what they do, how they got into it, and how it's affected their life, just so we can all learn about the benefits of death doulas in our lives and society. Today we have Jo Brickman, and she's just here to share her story. So take it away, Jo.
Pamela, glad that you're doing this. So my path to becoming a death doula really began in earnest with the illness of my father. He had a terminal illness called glioblastoma multiforme. It's a form of brain cancer that's um, nobody survives. And it was a devastating diagnosis for him. He was truly a Renaissance man, and to lose his executive function was really devastating on many levels. And so I spent the 13 months from the time that he was diagnosed to the time that he died, traveling back and forth to San Diego, where my parents lived and where I grew up, to um, do interviews with him while he was still alive and record his stories and life experiences, as well as to just support my mom. I think the caregiving role was really intense, and she handled it with a lot of grace. But I think what that experience showed me was the kind of what was showing up in our family, what was showing up in terms of available resources, and also what was not available, and just to have the struggle to try to piece everything together and navigate this thing. Um, and I felt um, resourced to do this because I've kind of always been interested in and open to conversations about death since I was a kid. But this was the first time that it was a process and somebody that was deeply close to me. And we did not have a straightforward relationship, so there were some complications and we had to navigate all of that. But going through that process was transformative for me. And this was in 2010. And I was deep in a professional career of a different kind at the time, and didn't consider delving into this until quite a bit later. And that really came alive for me when my mother-in-law became sick with ovarian cancer. Interestingly enough, in the year before she was even diagnosed, she did not know she was sick. She and my father-in-law enrolled in a course that was sponsored by their local hospital, there in Traverse City, Michigan. This local hospital sponsored a 12-month long cohort-based course. Once a month, they would get together and with the same group of people to talk through issues around death and dying and everything from the practical, mundane, paperwork side of things all the way to like the spiritual and psychological aspects. And I spoke with them right after they finished that course, and I was just really witnessing how much sort of like comfort and freedom they gained from that experience. And it just was really moving. And then coincidentally, 2 months later, she gets diagnosed with ovarian cancer and dies within 1 month of that diagnosis. It was all due to complications. She had other underlying conditions that made that happen that way. But that, being able to work through those really hard conversations and decisions together in this like very safe, facilitated group was very impactful for them. And I remember in that moment going like, gosh, I would love to be able to do that for other people. And so that was like the first kind of thought that I had that I might want to pursue this. And I was already in the midst of a career transition at that point. And so I started looking into it and asking questions about it. And that's kind of what launched me into the path.
Wow. Yeah, well, that is definitely I mean, almost like how else could you do anything else, at
Yeah,
that point.
yeah.
So how has that showed up in your life? How do you practice that now?
Hmm. Well, I would say that, my experience in getting to know many other death doulas now, is that, each one of us comes to it with our own sort of flavor, our own skill sets, our own interests, our strengths. And I guess what I have really leaned into is a deep comfort that I have with silence
Mm,
and not knowing, like uncertainty, and also a real familiarity with suffering. I have struggled with mental illness in my own life and have really worked through a lot of those things. And I'm just comfortable there. And so, and a lot of like my work in my professional career leading up to this was in facilitating group dialogue. And in that role, you really have to be comfortable with silence, and allow for what's going to emerge without feeling like you need to fill in all the spaces. And sometimes, as a death doula, the most valuable thing we can offer is not talking, not feeling like we have to answer because we can't answer or solve. That's not our role. Um, and so it just felt in many ways like all of the things that I had learned in other career paths in my life had kind of fed into this role. I'm also a musician, and so one of the things that I wanted to bring was, I'm not a music therapist. I don't have that training, but um, just the comfort that can come from being soothed by music. It, I witnessed that with my dad. I offered that with my dad, and now I'm using that with clients and in my hospice volunteering as well. Just
mm,
being able to bring my guitar and my voice into the room is really nice in those moments when talking isn't what's wanted
mm.
um, or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's just for so many people there's fear, there's anxiety at times like that. So just the soothing, melodies, that's just so beautiful.
Hmm.
Hmm. And so how would you say that, entering into this field as a doula has like how has that changed you as a person, would you say,
Um,
or enhanced you?
Yeah, I mean, it's in so many ways. It has actually prompted me to explore learn new things. I've since becoming a doula, I have gotten training in Reiki,
Mm,
um, and that has been just an unbelievable gift in other aspects of my life as well. I'm pretty sure I would not have pursued that had it not been for this. And that's lovely. I would say, I think when I first embarked on this, I was worried that it might be depressing or too heavy, or like there might be some burden associated with it, but it's 100% off the 180 degrees opposite from that. It's so life affirming, and so there's so much like connection that comes from it. It's very like soul feeding, and that really surprised me and has really affirmed the choice ultimately is that like, they're not everybody's cut out for that, and for some people maybe it would be depressing, but it 100% is not for me. I get so much from just being with people who are confronting something that is so ultimately like about it's not even just humanity, it's like being a living organism. Like this is something that we are going to face, and just having all the other stuff stripped away, and it's like just this reality right here right now. And that is awesome to witness and be part of.
yeah, yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that line, you know being a death worker is life affirming.
Hmm.
I think that would be surprising to people,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
true. I mean, I totally agree with you on that. Do you have like a favorite or a particular interest in helping certain kind of people or certain kind of situations that, and maybe it's related to what you went through or just, kind of
Yeah. Well, certainly anybody who is themselves or is taking care of somebody with glioblastoma multiforme, the disease that my father had, I have a soft spot for them because it is such a uniquely kind of tragic disease. I shouldn't say uniquely. It is a tragic disease. There are others that have similar kinds of impacts on life and on the spirit. Um, and I would say that, through working with my dad, I also and this was he was dying in California in 2010, and that was a time when death with dignity was not available.
okay.
Medical aid in dying was not accessible in California at that time. And even if it had been, by the time he was really ready to check out, he would not have been eligible. But it was something that he wanted at a certain point, and we were not able to make that happen for him. And so as a result, medical aid in dying is a real interest of mine. So helping people navigate that is definitely an area of focus. And I'm beginning the process of volunteering with End of Life Choices Oregon as a result, because I believe so strongly in people being able to take advantage of that right, and to be able to have the peaceful death of their choice, is just really important to me. And along with that, the other experience that I had with my father that and it has informed my path, was after death care. In my dad's case, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And we were talking with the social worker from the hospice organization, and they were wonderful. I'm not throwing any shade at them, but this particular social worker had a conversation with my mother and my sister and myself, and she asked, "Do you have any questions about what happens when he dies?" And I asked, "Well, would it be okay if we bathed him?" She goes, "Oh, no, 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 no. The funeral home will take care of that." And it was, I mean, I was in such a fragile, like vulnerable state. I didn't have the wherewithal to respond and clarify my question.
Right.
And she didn't have the curiosity to figure out where that question was coming from. And so sort of two things about that. One is now I'm very conscious of being curious about where people's questions are coming from and not making assumptions that question was coming from, like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to bathe him. It was
Right.
I would really like to be able to take care of and honor his body after he passes. And just that exchange was such a miss, that I really want to like course correct for that. And I also went and learned how to do home funerals as a result. So I've done postmortem care as part of the training thing. And, in Oregon, death doulas aren't really allowed to do that ourselves. So what I can do is, as a service pro bono, I can coach people through the steps of what they would need to do if they want to do that on their own. Um, and I can serve as like a celebrant. So I have those skills and those interests, and that I just feel like the therapeutic benefits of um, having contact with a dead body, after your loved one has departed, um, is there's really nothing that can compare to that in terms of like being able to really grasp that they are no longer embodied,
Hmm.
and to really grasp that this person that you once knew is not present anymore. And the beautiful thing of being able to give gratitude to and blessings for that person. You know, in my dad's case, it was like called time of death, zip up the body bag. You know, it was so harsh and
Right.
abrupt, and
Right.
I just don't want other people to have to go through that. So if it's something that they want, obviously it's not something I'm going to be forcing on anybody, but if it's something that they want, I want to be able to help them understand that that's an option and kind of walk them through what can be done.
Yeah, which is great because so many people don't know that you can keep the body around for hours and you can do
Hmm.
all kinds of things. So the education piece is great.
Yeah.
Huh, wow. I just love the combination and the culmination of all the things that you bring to this because yeah, the thing your dad had and went through, I mean, it's how just utterly devastating for everyone, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and unless you've been through something like that, maybe you don't quite understand it.
Yeah.
So that's great. Hmm. Anything else you want to add about your space as a death doula?
No, I guess the only other thing I would add is that, you know, as a as an organizational consultant and somebody who has worked in the nonprofit space for many years with a real emphasis on connections and ecosystem building between organizations, it's something that I'm really interested in seeing happen in Oregon is, you know, there to be more sort of awareness of what resources are available and a building of a real interconnected web of those resources um, so that we can all collectively be filling in those gaps and making sure that you know, people who have the skills to meet a certain need are focusing on that and doing that really well. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, because there's so many different helpers out there, but finding the right fit really
Hmm.
makes it go a lot more smoothly, I think.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing what you do.
Yeah.
And do you have a way for people to reach out to you if they're interested in working with you?
Yeah. I have a website, and it might be hard to hear, but I'll
Yeah,
I'll say
we'll link it in the
do a link there, but it's
in the link.
enso-doula.com.
Okay.
And yeah, I think I hope that people will check that out and take a look. I am launching a new class this fall that's modeled after the one that my in-laws had, and I've not been able to find anything quite like it here.
Wonderful.
So yeah, that information will be there on my website too.
That's great. Okay, yeah, I'll put it in the comments. All
All
right.
right.
Well, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Pamela.
All right.